Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is going to be part 2 of my testimony. Part 1, I finished off with describing how the generational curses, the broken hearts, the traumas, all these things are chains that we cannot shake off of ourselves. Deliverance belongs to Yahusha, so you have to cry out to Him for Him to free you from that, because He came to set the captives free. He didn't send anybody else to set you free. It's Him Himself, and it's by His Spirit that if you would truly believe it and seek Him, that He will set you free from your trauma, broken hearts, and your wounds, and anything else you're struggling from. But I want to move on with my testimony now. Because of my testimony, right after I experienced what I experienced in part 1, we went to Passover in 2024 to a large gathering. And when we got there, I was setting up the tent. I was helping get the whole place prepared, because I've been there a couple times already. So they knew me, I know them. And I kind of called the pastor at that time before we came, and he invited me to come out early, me and my family to come help us set up, which would be the first time I ever done this with them. So as far as setting up, I've done feasts with them before in the past. And so where to start with this? Let's see. I was helping set up the tent, and we got the tent set up, and I was helping put together these heaters, these propane heaters. And me and another brother was talking to each other. This brother's name is Robert. And this brother, we was talking. He was telling me about his life and whatnot, and just kind of keep this condensed. But the Spirit came upon me and basically gave him a parable. And I described to him how we're these rocks that Yahweh holds in His hands. And He's constantly refining until we are a beautiful gem, the size of a piece of sand that He can shine His light through. And He says, oh, how beautiful, right? And this man started crying. And I mean, honestly, I couldn't believe what was coming out of my mouth either. I thought it was pretty awesome. It's the first time I ever said anything like that, really. And because it's all the Spirit, it's not me, right? So, but anyways, I'm just a willing vessel. I started walking away eventually after we got done talking and hugging and everything, and he was following me. And I turned around and I was like, Robert, you okay? And he's like, I want more wisdom. And I looked at him, I was like, it comes from Yahweh, right? And he walked away. But so fast forward, it was still daytime. It was Passover, the day of Passover at this point. And we were getting ready to kill the lambs so we can eat them. And it's the first time I got to watch the lamb really be slaughtered. And when I seen it, I seen my Messiah in it. And now granted, these are not sins for sacrifice, right? Someone's got to kill your animal for you. It's going to either be you or some farmer or some butcher shop. We just chose to do it ourselves versus pay a butcher shop to do it. So, but this is the first time I've seen this. And I said we chose. I didn't make the decision, but I was there to participate in it. But it's the first time I seen this. And when I seen it, I seen my Messiah. I seen how He laid His life down. And I walked away crying. I couldn't stay there anymore. I was weeping. And I remember going behind the kitchen, the outdoor kitchen they had. It was indoor, but it was a separate building from everything else. And I fell on my knees, and the Spirit came over me. And the Spirit told me, it said, sell your guitars, you're going to minister. And I was like, okay. So I gave away my acoustic guitar, and then after Passover, I sold my electric and my pedal board and everything. But that night, when we went to go eat the Passover lamb together as a body, and it was dark at this point, everyone's in the big old tent. We're about ready to eat it. And my daughter needs to go to the bathroom. So I take her to the bathroom. As she's in the bathroom, I'm standing underneath, the firmament, the sky, looking up at the moon, and I hear His voice tell me, take the Nazirite vow. And all I said after that was, Father, I take this vow unto you to be more set apart unto you. And then my daughter came out of the bathroom. I put her on my shoulders because she loves, she used to love getting on my shoulders. Now she's getting older. She don't do it so much anymore. And we walked in there in the big tent. And when we walked in the big tent, I could feel eyes staring at me, like I was surrounded by eyeballs staring at me. And as I looked around, I was locking eyes with people that were just staring at me. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know how else to describe it. It was definitely supernatural because I've never experienced anything like it. But anyways, so we eat the Passover lamb. We go to bed. The next day, unleavened bread. We're all back in the big tent again. It's daytime at this point. It's loud. Everyone's talking. We're all breaking bread together and eating. And it was like I could hear it. Over all the noise, I heard a voice say, the faith the size of a mustard seed. And it wasn't loud. While everything else was loud, I could hear this voice crystal clear, almost like it was a dart that right there in my ear. And the faith the size of a mustard seed. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that. I read about it in Matthew back in my Christian, years, but I forgot all about it. So that night, I went into my tent after my wife and children went to bed. I got on my knees and I just prayed to the Father simply, give me the faith the size of a mustard seed. And then I went to sleep. That was it. I didn't say a bunch of other words or gibberish or anything else. I didn't try to say enough words where I hope he believed me. I just said it to him as I'm talking to this phone right now, and which is kind of weird, but I'm learning to adapt to it. Wake up the next day. It's no longer a high Sabbath. Me and my family, we go into town. We go to Walmart, do some laundry, and while we're gone, a big storm comes through the camp. It almost tears down the big tent. It tears up all the small tents. The people were staying in, the cheap ones, and it basically ripped down all the dead branches of all the trees. And mind you, at this point in the year, it's spring's coming. It's here basically, and the leaves are starting to bloom and stuff like that. But the wind came through and just knocked all the tree limbs down. And of course, I didn't know this until we started driving back to camp. But I started driving back to camp, and after we went down the big long dirt road to turn on the smaller dirt road to go to the camp. When I say small, it's basically big enough for one vehicle, and if there's two vehicles coming the same way, you kind of have to ride the hills and everything with the banks. But the Spirit came over me again, and I don't know how else to describe it besides I was looking into another dimension. I was able to see past the veil a little bit, not all the way, because it's not like I could see anything in particular, but it was like the green leaves were vivid. I could see the beauty in what was before me in a way that I couldn't before. And the Spirit told me, just as the strong winds prune the trees in their season, my Ruach is going to prune you. And I had so much joy in me, and I still do as I think about it and even repeat it. I was jumping up and down. I was telling my wife, write this down. And of course, she never wrote it down, but I never forgot it either. So praise Abba. Never will forget it. This part of my life is just so pivotal. We get back to camp, and while we're in camp, I have a brother come up to me named Cameron, and he said, bro, you won't believe what happened. He's like a storm came through, blew people's tents over and destroyed things, blew the big tent down. I was like, dang, right? I was like, I'm glad everybody's okay, right? So me and my family, we get settled in, we get everything put back up, to get the food and everything put in our little 12-volt fridge. And we go in the big tent to hang out with some other families. And while we're in there, I'm playing with my daughter. While I'm wearing a pair of rain pants, and underneath it's just my underwear. Just gonna be flat out straight with you. They rip. I'm like, I need to put some pants on. So I go back to my tent. I put pants on. I walk out of my tent. Then I hear the Father speak to me. He says, go find Cameron. I'm like, okay, well, all right, this is definitely you, because I've been hearing your voice since, for a while now. Very crystal clear. So I go to Cameron. Cameron's a camper. I knock on the door. His wife answers. I said, hey, is Cameron here? She said, no, he's praying for deliverance over another brother named Austin. And I'm like, praise Yah. I was like, do you know where he's at? She's like, no, I think I already said that, but sorry, I'm getting notifications on my phone. It's distracting. But she said that I told her, I was like, well, I'll pray about it. So I walked away and I prayed. And then the Father told me, go knock on Austin's camper door. So I did, and I knocked on it. And his wife answered. I said, hey, I heard there's deliverance going on. Is Austin here? And she was like, no. She said no. And I was like, do you know where he's at? She's like, no. I'm like, all right, praise Yah. So I start walking away, but then I feel led to pray over his camper. So I did. And I started walking away. At this point, I was like, I have to be going crazy. I'm perceiving the voice I'm hearing is your voice, Father. And I believe it is, but nothing's adding up right now. So I walk back in front of my tent. When I walk in front of my tent, I hear his voice again. It says, go to the river. Now, mind you, a big storm just came through. The river is flooded up to the upper banks and is rushing. Like, it's deadly water at this point. So I start walking the river. At this point, I'm like, oh, surely that's where Cameron and them are at. I was wrong. But anyways, we'll get to that point. As I'm walking past the bathrooms, I see another brother named Stan, and I say, hey, Stan, have you seen Austin or Cameron? He's like, no, I haven't seen them. I was like, well, I'm going to the river. And he's like, be careful. As I start walking down the path to the river, that's when a hedge of protection, I can feel it all around me. I can feel him just shielding me, because those voices that used to be right up against me and talking to my ears and talking crap about me and telling me how terrible a person I am, that I just need to kill myself and all these things, was no longer right beside me, but they were away from me. And I can hear them yelling at me, don't go, you'll die, turn around now. And they were throwing every fiery dart they could at me to get me to stop walking down to this river. And I just kept going. The spirit at this point was just leading me down. I get down the river, I get under the canopy of these trees, and I see the river in front of me, and I fall on my knees. And a prayer came over me, and I just shouted up to the Shamayim, the heavens, that Yahweh, awaken your people, Israel, open their eyes and their ears. And right after I said that, I paused, I looked at the river. And when I looked at the river, I seen the destruction coming to the world in that river. But on the banks of the river was protection for Yahweh's people. And then it got quiet, and I was still just kind of looking at the river. And then I heard a voice tell me, jump in the river. And I paused. And I said, that's not my father's voice. And that thing fled. Now, mind you, I wasn't seeing this with my eyes. I don't know how else to describe it besides I was hearing and feeling all these things. And I was seeing, I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like almost I was seeing the fabric that's keeping us from seeing into the spiritual realm. But I was like glimpsing through it, but not actually seeing anything past it. I don't know how else to describe it. It's there's no words for it really, to be honest. But then after that thing fled from me, whether it was Satan, whether it was some kind of high ranked demon, I don't know. But what I do know is right after that thing fled, I heard his voice, and he said, bow down before me. And I put my face in the dirt, because I was already on my knees at this point. And I heard the wind blow, and it sounded like footsteps walking around me. And he got right in front of me and stood over me. And he said, just as I love and serve you, now love and serve me. Give this message to my people. I am coming with a sword for a bride without spot or blemish, and I am coming soon. Now get up and go. I got up. Let me hold on. Before I got up, as he was speaking this into me, it was like he was pouring into me. And it was just pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. And it was flowing and flowing. And it was just, I couldn't feel my body anymore. All the pains, the aches, everything was gone, disappeared, vanished. I got up, I turned around, Robert, I see this brother Robert I mentioned earlier walking down to the river. I see him, I walk up to him, I meet him, like, what are you doing down here? He said, I heard a voice say, go to the river. And I looked at him, I said, go lay it all down before him, brother. And I started walking up. And when I tell you, I feel like I was just walking on a cloud. That's what it felt like. It felt like this spirit was radiating off of me in a way that's just, I was surrounded. And nothing could get to me that he didn't want in me or near me. And I walked back up to the bathroom, and I seen Stan again. I got right up in Stan's face, and I told him, he's coming with the sword for a bride without spot or blemish, and he's coming soon. And Stan, his very next words, you need to tell the people. Instant confirmation. Stan leads the way to the big tent, to the front of the stage. I follow him. And we get to the front corner of the stage, and everybody's in there, for the most part. Maybe not quite everybody, but the majority of the people that were at that camp were in that tent at that time. And Stan, it was loud. Stan was like, I don't know how we're going to get their attention or how we're going to get this message to them. But then he seen the pastor, and he said, oh, there's a pastor. Let's ask him. And when he said that, I walked. Like, it wasn't me. The Spirit moved my feet to this man. And I grabbed this man by the shoulders, and he looked at me and said, what is wrong with you? What did you do? And I said, he's coming with a sword. He said, I know. And And I said, he's for a bride without spot, blemish. She said, yes, I've been saying this. And I said, he's coming soon. And he said, I know. And as soon as he said, I know, my body turned around and I shouted, Israel! And I shouted in a way I've never shouted before. Like this shout right here I just gave you, nowhere near how the Ruach shouted out of my mouth at this time. Because I've never been able to shout like that again. Never had before either. And I gave the message. He's coming with the sword for a bride without spot or blemish. He's coming soon. And as soon as I said that, the entire congregation went in one unison, hallelujah. And I've never heard a hallelujah like it before in my life, and still haven't to this day. And as soon as they said hallelujah, I looked back at the pastor and I said, I have to find Cameron. And at this point, the Spirit's moved me. I'm telling you, it's like I'm just observing what's happening to me. And I walked at Cameron's door. He answers the door. I barge in. I tell him, you're doing the will of the Father. You're to continue doing it. You're to stop doubting yourself. And as I'm saying these things to him, and I finally let him speak, he goes, bro, I was just on my knees right when you knocked on the door. Father, am I doing your will? And then we wept, we cried, we praised Yahweh. I left. I go out of the camper. I walk back to the front of the tent where I heard his voice the first time. And as I'm looking in front of me, I see a sword pointing out in front of me. And this sword, I could see people walking around it. People that were there. And it's not like that they could see the sword. I don't know how else to describe it. It just looked like a sword pointing out in front of me. And the Spirit told me, just as you was rejected before, you will be rejected again. Now enjoy the Spirit. And when I tell you he allowed me to enjoy the Spirit, I would sleep for 1 or 2 hours at night and wake up the very next day completely refreshed, energized, as if I had a full 8 hours sleep for several nights in a row for the rest of that Passover and that unleavened bread. And when I got home, when me and my family traveled home, and I got back to West Virginia, where we're from, where we lived, where we had the house, I had $200 left to my name. And I remember looking at the back of my house, and I remember thinking, well, I need to go back to work. But that's when the Spirit came over me again, and he said, trust in me and sell everything. So I sold it all. The very first people came looked at the house, they said, well, take it. Closing took 2 months for whatever reason, but in that 2 months, the Father had me read books I never read before. Because at this point, I only ever read the book of Matthew and Revelation. Now, I've listened to online teachings before, so I know what the scriptures were saying based upon what other men were reading, but never really read all this stuff for myself before. And he told me, go read the book of Sirach. I went to go read the book of Sirach. I read Sirach chapter 45. And at Sirach chapter 45, the Spirit came over me again. He said, you are from the tribe of Levi. You are my inheritance, and I am yours. And at that time, I had no idea what that meant. But I do now. It means that I'm from the tribe of Levi, but I have responsibilities within the kingdom. Because really, all this started back in 2023, after Passover 2023. And I think I said this in part 1, but I'm going to say it again. I asked the Father, what's my role in your kingdom? He gave me a role. He gave me an identity. And I've been operating in it since Passover 2024, ever since we sold the house. Been reading his word. He's been showing me his order. He's been showing me his kingdom. He's been showing me how to walk in righteousness, how to walk in spirit and truth. And I sold everything. We followed him. We've been given a diesel pusher RV, which I sold eventually because it had issues. But when we had that thing, we traveled across the country. No money, but money was given to us when we needed it. And we boondocked, but everything we needed was provided for us. I mean, I'm summarizing the journey part, and I'll save that for another testimony. But for the sake of this, I really just want to focus on just when you seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, he gives you everything you need. He gives you food, water, shelter, clothing. And then if there's anything else he needs you to have for the ministry he's given you, he will give it to you. You just must trust and seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. And you can't do that while you're stuck on this earth. Forgive me. While you're on this earth, but while you're stuck in the world, you cannot do this, right? Because you are stuck chasing the world and its worries. Now, is the walk this extreme for everybody? I think it is if you want it. If you want it, it's for you. If you don't want it, don't try to obtain it. Because count the cost, as it says in Luke. I forget what chapter it is. Because this does come at a high cost. Once you choose to follow him and be just like him in the sense of selling everything and being led by the Spirit, you have to go through such hardships, such refinement, but also such huge blessings. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for everybody. I'll just say that. I'll just be flat out. It's just not for everybody. I used to think everybody had to do this, but now that I'm looking back, that's just not the case. And if it is, and I'm wrong, then so be it. But I just think it's for everybody, because I've tried pushing this on everybody and it just doesn't work. I've tried delivering it lovingly. I've tried showing it. It's just, you can't make somebody want this, at least this level of it, because there's levels to this walk. And because Messiah told the business owner, right? I forget where it's at. Forgive me for the addresses, not being able to memorize them, but if you just look it up, he told him, it's like, hey, you got people that depend on you. You know, don't give everything up, because people depend on you for life, to provide for themselves and their families. So that's why I say it's not for everybody. That's just one example, at least. So, and the kingdom has many roles, right? So you got the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes have not been done away with. The 12 tribes are the characteristics of who you are in this kingdom. So if you want to know what tribe you're from, ask the Father, and he will give it to you. Now, will it be as radical as it was for me? I can't say that to be sure, but he will make it known. He will give you confirmations, right? But you have to really want this at the end of the day still, because your identity is not in this world, but it's in the world to come. It's in the kingdom to come. We just have to be, if we just go ahead and operate in it now and represent the kingdom as sojourners and as ambassadors according to the gifts he's given us, and maybe even understanding what tribe we're in, then we're not living for this world, we're living for him. And you can do that in any layer of this. No matter where you're at in your walk right now, no matter where you're at in this season of your life, you can seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. By seeking him early, praying to him constantly, meditate on his word day and night, and reading his word and asking him to show you the truth. So with that, brothers and sisters, there's part 2, 22 minutes long. And I pray blessings over you and your families and all my brothers and sisters out there. And I hope this encourages and builds up and edifies the body. And it's time for Yahusha to wake up.